Hey gang, let's make sure that we're live. Looks like we are. Just checking audio. Okay, everything seems good. My lighting is still terrible, and I can't figure out how to mess with OBS and cut in better. So we'll just have to roll with it. Hey, I'm Weil at Money Positive, weekly stream about personal finance issues. We are on scary financial planning for everyone. And I wanted to talk today about loans, specifically credit card debt, pay and installment debt. But maybe not for the reason that you think, that I'm going to tell people to stop doing it and shame people for having credit card debt and stuff. I was listening to a podcast called Pivot, hosted by Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway. And Scott, Professor Galloway, said something that kind of got under my skin, and I wanted to address it. Maybe I'll tag him in this and try to get a rise out of him. About they were talking about some new pay and installment plans that are available online, and he said something about young people and credit cards and debt and impulse control. And I've been doing this for 7 years. I've doing financial planning. I've worked with hundreds of people, and I gotta say, I almost never see impulse control being a problem. There are reasons that people build credit card debt and other types of debt. And you can talk to one person and talk about their individual responsibility and help them with it. But the larger issue of it is systemic. The biggest reason I see people with credit card debt, when someone comes to me and they've got 5 figures in credit card debt, often what happens is, especially if someone's newly graduated or moved to a new city to take a new job, shit's gotten really expensive. Like, it has been expensive for years. Wages have not kept up with the costs of living. Content warning, I'm going to say shit and fuck multiple times in here because it's necessary to get the point across. And so what I see a lot happens, especially, someone comes to me, after a few years into their career, they moved somewhere, they, have no savings because they're young, or they've not been in a place to save before that. Housing's expensive, cost of living is expensive, getting around's expensive. You got to most places you got to buy a car to get to work, and so it's not for lack of trying that people run out of money. Like, you can be in a new, good, well-paying job, or better paying than you had before, and still be in a pinch for a while. And so what happens is someone moves somewhere to take a new job, or to try to find a job, and they end up using the credit card for just the daily things of life, as a way to get by, as a way to wait until payday. And this is because they didn't have the savings to cover them while they got on their feet, or oftentimes their entry-level job just doesn't cover enough for them to live in the city that they're in. Which, unfortunately, a lot of people will say, well, go move to Omaha or something. Well, a lot of places that are more affordable, the jobs aren't there. And a lot of the jobs that, you can get are maybe more mid-career, senior level, where you're able to move somewhere and work remotely. Entry-level jobs are in the places where the industries are. So it often means moving to a bigger city, and bigger cities tend to be more expensive. So I think it's really unfair to suggest that it's largely an impulse control issue. Usually when people come, it's because they just had to use their credit card to get by, to put gas in the car, to get clothes for their job. And then sometimes what happens is, they've started building up this debt, and they more than they can handle, and they just reach a point where they're fuck it. I've already got 10 grand in debt. What's another 1,000 to take this trip? What's another, swipe to buy a new computer or a TV or video game system? And that's not the thing that put them in debt. They start getting that kind of debt because they've been put in a position where, well, they don't see a way out, so they might as well enjoy themselves. And I can, you know what? I get it. I get it. And so one thing that we try to help people get is to get to a place where they never get to fuck it, which is why we focus so much on budgeting. The other thing we see is people doing retail therapy. It's real. It feels good to buy things. It gives us a dopamine hit and we get stuff. And so, when we're budgeting with people, we try to build that in to let them keep a little bit of retail therapy, but also you should do real therapy in addition to your retail therapy. So what we do when we've got people who are in debt, we budget like we would for anybody. So we always see what income is coming in, what are the things you have to spend money on, how much money can you spend safely in a month, and then what can you save. And so we might get someone to first save some money rather than giving it to the credit card companies right away. We often say you have permission to keep your own money, to build up an emergency fund, to build up a little bit of savings so you can break the cycle of living paycheck to paycheck. Because what happens is people get a bunch of credit card debt and then they just throw money at the credit cards because they feel guilty and they're scared. And just anytime, money comes in, they just throw it. And then they have no money and then they end up reaching for the credit card again. So we got to break that cycle by holding on to money at first and then starting, once you've broken that cycle, starting to make bigger payments. Usually what we do is look at all of the debt that someone has, what are the interest rates, what are the minimum monthly payments, and then we do what's called debt waterfalling. It's a very common practice of making all your minimum payments and then focusing your savings for the month at one card, either the highest interest card or the lowest balance card. I usually like to start with the lowest balance cards because just getting that win of making a debt go away can help build a cycle of paying off, of gaining momentum. So I like to often do that rather than the highest interest card first necessarily. Once people have oftentimes people in this position need to rebuild their credit scores a little bit. And once they've, rebuilt their track record of making payments, we often suggest to people that they get no interest balance transfer loans. Or balance transfer credit cards rather. These are where you take your credit card balance and you transfer it to special cards that offer no interest on balance transfers. I see them usually for 12 months to a year, zero interest. This is not out of the goodness of credit card companies' hearts. They are assuming that if you've built up this debt, that you're going to continue to build up debt, and they would rather take that debt from another credit card company and have it for themselves. Because after that, they start charging, normal exorbitant credit card interest rates. But what we often have people do that because it buys us time to make progress because of the negative effects of compounding that this kind of debt has, where if it's, a minus 20% interest rate every month, that's just going to keep adding upon itself. So getting a 0% loan by doing a balance transfer credit card can often be a good tool to buy some time to build up savings and make progress on the cards. If that doesn't work, sometimes we'll even suggest, especially for higher balances, multiple 5 figures, of getting personal loans from credit unions. That just tends to be the best place to get a personal loan. A personal loan is a type of unsecured debt where you're not, using your house or your car as collateral. They just look at your history and judge whether they feel safe lending you money. And the reason for that is because often personal loans have better interest rates than credit cards do. And again, it's about fighting against that effect of negative interest and buying time to to make progress on the debt. So, that's a common thing that we do. I'm not against the careful use of credit cards. Like when we buy equipment for Money Positive or personally, if there's a 0% offer on it, oftentimes I'll do it because I'm like, well, I've got the money in the bank, but I would rather keep that liquidity just in case, possibly put it in a savings account where I can get like 4% interest right now and just make my payments for as long as it takes and let that company take on the risk rather than emptying my pocket. So I think there's a time and place for judicious use of credit cards. Normally we ask people to stick with debit cards for most budgeting stuff, but credit cards to, get points because they have better insurance, safety, travel abilities. I should do a whole thing about credit cards and loans sometime. But yeah, I just wanted to address this to say, like, I kind of think it's BS. Oh, now I stop cussing. That all the judgment and guilt we put on people for having card debt. I've just never seen it where someone is just, too compulsive. Like usually there's a root cause, and yeah, like you could just have a family and kids, and you got to feed them and clothe them, or you've just got to do it to get by. I've never seen it to where some of the stereotypes around people being irresponsible. I've never seen it. There's always a reason, and I don't think that judging people for it is solving anything. And I think that it's a bigger systemic issue that needs to be dealt with. I just wanted to get that off my chest. Thanks for listening. If you have any questions, Lewis, Lewis, at moneypositive.com, info@moneypositive.com, or just go to moneypositive.com. I would love to help you get out of your credit card debt and build savings and financial security and invest and quit your job or take a sabbatical or buy a house or buy a car or have a kid, start a new business, whatever it is that you want to do that you feel is you're being held back on by your debt, let us help you. Anyway, don't see any hot questions in the chat, so I'm going to sign out. Thanks and stay money positive.